Mr. Granderson, thank you for agreeing to brief us on the very important events which occurred during and in the sidelines of the 73rd United Nations General Assembly. What is the significance of CARICOM's participation in that annual gathering of world leaders?
The General Assembly brings together representatives, many of them at the highest level, heads of state, heads of government, foreign ministers, basically from all the countries in the world. Therefore, it's a very important platform when it comes to international relations, when it comes also to the possibility of engagement with third states with which one does not normally meet, or one doesn't have the opportunity to meet. So from that point of view, it's always a very important meeting, and the importance obviously is underlined by the level of participation of many countries, including the largest countries. First, CARICOM, it serves several purposes. First of all, it gives us an opportunity. Our foreign ministers are able to meet. There's a special session of the Council for Foreign and Community Relations, and this helps them, for example, to coordinate their positions on issues on the UN agenda, but issues which are of particular concern or particular interest to the Caribbean community and to the people of the community. Things like non-communicable diseases, the issue of climate change, other concerns having to do, for example, with the blacklisting of our financial services sector, disaster management and recovery, which as you know has always been a priority, but which has become perhaps even, how should I put it, more important in view of the increased intensity of hurricanes, one of the results of climate change. It's also an opportunity for us. It's also the opportunity for us to be able to meet with representatives of a number of states. Also the opportunity to be able to advocate on a number of issues which are viewed as being important to us in the community. We also have the opportunity to meet, for example, with representatives of other small island developing states and their groupings. For example, the Pacific Islands Forum. We had a meeting also with, for example, representative of the Organization of American States, informal meeting with a representative of SICA, Central American Integration System. Also informal meetings with the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat.
The special call is a usual staple in the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Are there any significant outcomes emanating from that special call, the 11th special call?
Well, the most important thing obviously is to make sure that all the member states are on the same page, that we know exactly what interests, what particular issues are we going to be putting forward. For example, following the meeting of prime ministers with regard to the CSME in early September, therefore decision was taken to use the General Assembly, especially the statements being made by our prime ministers and by our foreign ministers, to highlight that particular issue. The Secretariat prepared, for example, a succinct paragraph on the issue, and our member states precisely used the opportunity to be able to highlight that and to call on the United Nations to pay far more attention to that particular issue, which has quite a disastrous effect on not only on financial services but on our economies, because as you know, a number of our member states rely heavily on revenue coming from financial services. We were able also, several years ago, CARICOM was able to have the whole issue of non-communicable diseases placed on the United Nations agenda, which means that far more attention is being paid to it, far more resources are being made available. And at this General Assembly, there was a third high-level meeting on NCDs. The community also took advantage of the opportunity to organize a side event at which there were a number of third states that were represented. It was also graced with the presence of the Director General of the World Health Organization, the President of the General Assembly, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth was also present, and presentations were made by several of our Prime Ministers. The meeting was chaired by the Prime Minister of St. Kitts Nevis, who holds cabinet responsibility within the community for health issues, and presentations were made by Prime Minister of Jamaica, Prime Minister also of Barbados. So it was very important. It was also the opportunity to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the signing of what we call the Port of Spain Declaration, which basically is the policy document guiding our individual member states with regard to fighting against non-communicable diseases.
From what you just mentioned, it seems as though our global influence in the fight against NCDs is still very prominent from those high-level representation we had at the CARICOM moves or the Caribbean moves launch. Could you tell me specifically what are some of the foreign policy implications for having the whole issue of NCD, which many would view as a health issue, on the foreign policy agenda?
Well, yes, it's basically a health issue, but for example, resources are required to deal by our member states to be able to deal more effectively, more efficiently with this particular fight against NCDs. We need obviously to strengthen our policy responses. As I said, by placing it on the international agenda, it means that we're able to sensitize not only the wider international community, but also a number of our international development partners, and therefore the possibility of receiving resources, the possibility of receiving also technical assistance to be able to do a better job in combating that particular scourge.
I see. And that brings me to the whole issue of using the UN General Assembly as an opportune time for CARICOM to meet with its third states partners, because the various capitals are represented there. I imagine that this year was no different, and our engagement was quite robust with our traditional partners and perhaps new partners as well. Could you tell me about the significance of those engagements to CARICOM, and what were some of the tangible outcomes which emanated?
Yes, it's always important to take advantage of the presence of all these representatives at the United Nations. Obviously, there's a limit to how much one can do in the space of 5 or 6 days, because that's normally the maximum amount of time that our heads and our foreign ministers would spend in New York. But for example, this year we had the opportunity to meet with the United Kingdom, with the United States, both of them at their request, also with Japan, also at the request of Japan, and we had what we call the traditional working lunch with the grouping of Nordic countries. These meetings tend to be quite important in the sense that, again, an opportunity to put forward our concerns, to get support with regard to our interests. You speak of tangible results. I think that when you're dealing with foreign relations, tangible outcomes are not necessarily immediate. But for example, coming out of the meeting with the United States, a decision has been taken to have a dedicated meeting between Caribbean community and the US with regard to disaster management and disaster recovery. And that I think is very important, because among the issues which will be coming up will be, for example, we've been talking about the need to put in place regional insurance, which would facilitate the ordinary man, because you asked about that. Also, perhaps strengthening our coordination modalities with the United States, with their technical people, whether it has to do with meteorology, warning of hurricanes, of approaching tropical storms, whether it has to do with some of the, how should I put it, support that can be provided with regard to recovery, whether it's technical, whether it's the presence of experts in disaster management and recovery, whether it's a possibility also, as was the case last year, assistance, financial and other assistance, material assistance provided by not only by the United States, by a number of our international development partners.